we're always so, and not people that do this for a living like you and I do, but just average conservatives out there who just work and they pay their bills and they want to be left alone. I think that they draw inspiration from realizing that they have more power than they thought that they did. Donald Trump obviously has shown a light on the forgotten American when he won in 2016. But I think another thing that people realize, even if it was a small example, is what happened to Bud Light. I think that a lot of conservatives and Target too, they sat back and they watched the power that conservatives could have on this ginormous company. And they realized, oh, wait, we actually do have some influence. And sometimes I think conservatives forget the influence that we have. And I'm talking
Yep.
the everyday conservative, everyday Republican out there. And Bud Light kind of proved it. I know it's a small example.
No, it's a great
Bud
example.
Light ad with,
it's actually a perfect.
Still, we made a huge dent.
I think you're right, though. But that's my point, is that I feel like, I remember as a young campaign operative, I'd drive around and I'd listen to Rush Limbaugh and we'd hear all this stuff. And, it's kind of like there was a secret group of people that would talk about conservative issues. But now it's like you can be like, okay, I can fight back and win.
Yeah, and we can. And let's just hope, I've said this for months now. If we can tank Bud Light and we can put the heat on Target and the rest of these woke companies that have gone broke because of their wokeness, if we can do that, boy, we should be able to win an election. So let's take that energy and let's apply it to early voting and mail-in voting and ballot harvesting where it's legal. And let's apply some of that passion to those things. And boy, maybe we can win an election. I think that would be nice.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that you give voice to these issues and people know they're behind you. And I want to segue a little. Because you've given voice to a lot of people. I think there's a lot of young women that in particular that look at what you've done and said, look at Tomi. She goes out there, she fights, she's fearless. When you look back at college freshman Tomi Lahren, was this where you wanted to end up? Did you say, I want to get out there and be a warrior for issues? What did you want to be at the time? And look at yourself now and say, okay, is this where you wanted to be? Or is this sort of been a completely, undetermined ride that you got on?
Yeah, no, I've always wanted to do this. I've always had an opinion, and coming from where I come
so if
from
I asked,
in
by the way,
South
if I
Dakota,
asked like your fifth grade teacher, they would say, oh, Tomi, she always had an opinion?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everybody would tell you that. I've always had an opinion, but I also, to me, because I come from what we talked about earlier, middle America and forgotten America, I'm from South Dakota. And growing up, nobody really cared about us. No one really paid attention to us at all. And people like me who grew up where I grew up, it just feels like a lot of the Midwest is largely ignored. South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana. I mean, people don't really care about that part of the country, even though that's where your food comes from. And a lot of the things that you rely on come from. And I thought, hey, like, I have an opinion and I'm from this place and I feel like this place needs to be represented more. And so that's why obviously I've been such a big supporter of Donald Trump, because he finally recognized states like mine and my home state. So I think carrying that through, and that's just what I've always done. And I think young people, they need to realize the power and the influence they can have. Biden's out there with a TikTok army of these little brats out there. Conservatives are catching on. And I think that they're starting to do similar things. And that's what we're going to need to be able to fight fire with fire and win. Is we're going to need more young people that are willing to be maybe unpopular for a while if it serves a greater good.
So if you're a young person watching this now, you're a parent or grandparent and saying, look at the rise, this meteoric rise of Tomi Lahren, what she's been able to do, the audience that she commands, the influence that she has. What is your advice to that young person or that parent that's talking to their kid and saying, hey, you want to get involved? This is what you do.
Well, I always tell parents, because, I have a lot of parents that ask me this, how do we keep our kids conservative and how do we make sure that they stay conservative? And I say, listen, you might be a conservative parent and you might teach them all the right things. But if you were scared to stand up at a school board meeting and talk about masks or vaccine mandates or, boys in the girls' bathroom and in their sports, if you're scared to do that because you're scared that other parents or administrators aren't going to like you, Well, your young people at home are watching you, and they're watching you have no backbone and no spine, and they're going to learn from that. So the best way that you can keep your kids conservative and standing up for themselves and outspoken is to be that example. And that doesn't mean having to be the loudmouth parent all the time, but when it matters and when it's really important, parents need to do something, because it's not enough just to complain about the way things are. Get in there and get to work, and your young people will follow suit, and they will learn that it's okay to be unpopular for a while. It's okay to stand up for yourself. And sometimes it always doesn't turn out. You don't win all the battles, but at least you fought for something. And more conservatives, young, old, whatever, would do well to understand that, because it really does work if you practice
So who
it.
were those influences for you?
Honestly, just growing up where I grew up, I come from a ranching family, just very middle class, hardworking people who, always were conservative, but not heavily into conservative politics or anything. Just hardworking people, and coming from a ranching family and watching, what it's like and the struggles, what the economy can do to those everyday Americans. That's where I drew my inspiration. And then, of course, watching the greats and watching, of course, listening to Rush Limbaugh, growing up watching Sean Hannity, and even to some extent Glenn Beck before, you know, um, a lot of those people are inspirations to me. To this day, even, I draw a lot of inspiration from the great Judge Jeanine. She's somebody that I love to watch on Fox News because she is fearless. So I'm still inspired by all these people in this movement. And then, of course, Donald Trump himself. He is also a big inspiration to me because he is obviously fearless.
And so where did that come from? Tomi Lahren is fearless. Is that something someone said to you and you said I should name my show that? Or were you like, hell yeah, I am?
Well, originally, I've always liked that name because I think that you have to be fearless and speak out. And I am fearless in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that I fear, by the way. I'm not saying I fear nothing, but I really don't fear what people think about me. That's not something that I really fear. People ask me that a lot. What's it like to have people hate you or whatever? It really doesn't bother me. If my family and my friends and the people who know me like me, that's all that really matters. What people say about me online, about my intelligence or my opinions or my looks or whatever, I really don't care about those people. So in that way, I'm fearless. But the original name of my show was supposed to be Tomi Lahren is Unapologetic. But then media relations said there might be times where you do need to apologize. So maybe don't put that. And I said, well, there's very few times I'm actually going to apologize, but that's fine. We can change it to this. I'm also good with that.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, I appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for sharing it. Obviously, you moved from LA. You're now in Nashville, which is where I think a lot of the movement is moving. It's fascinating. Thank you for being with us. I really appreciate your time, and obviously, always enjoy coming on your show. And you have really done a great job. I mean, part of the reason I brought that up is I think you've given voice to a lot of people, but you've also been a model for a lot of people who want to take this on and say, I want to be fearless. I want to get out there. I want to have my voice heard. So, it's been great watching you do that. And your success is something that I think so many people should applaud. So I appreciate you being with us and wish you the best of luck as you continue to move forward.
Well, thank you as always for having me and coming on my show. And I also know that you have a real disdain for cats. And that's something that I would like to work on.
Oh my God, no.
Because as an animal lover, I would like to see you
first of all,
around.
I'm an animal lover. I just think that cats were like something that the devil did when God wasn't looking. But it's just true. It's a fact. We'll have to disagree on that one. But the cats are not part of my repertoire ever.
Well, maybe never say never. You never know what can happen, but we'll work on that.
All the best. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Continue to subscribe. We got a great show coming your way on Monday. Thanks for subscribing to the Sean Spicer Show. We'll see you back here after the weekend.